Have you come to terms with this yet, that you're an Olympian?
It's kind of weird. I think I have and I haven't. Um, I think it'll be more real once I'm at the Olympic Games because everything was pushed back a year. Everything was kind of just like weird, and I became an Olympian, but I haven't been to the Olympics yet, and so I feel like I'll officially feel like an Olympian once I've gone and competed. I think that might be like the turning point that really makes it real for me because right now I'm like, yes, I mean theoretically I'm an Olympian, but I haven't competed in the Olympics yet. So for me, I think the real thing will be like answering that question after I've competed and really experienced the games for all that they are.
Amen to that, right? Until you do it, you won't know what it's like.
Yeah.
So you started as a swimmer.
Yes.
Matt Scoggin found you on the other side of the pool. You were what, 9 years old doing a kick set?
Yeah.
What appealed to you about diving? How did you make that transition from a swimmer onto the diving boards?
Yeah, so for me, I would always swim. I've been swimming my whole life. I started swimming at Longhorn Aquatics when I was, I think, 7, turning 8 years old, and we would actually swim in the diving well sometimes. And I would be practicing while the club dive practice was going on, and I'd be kicking, and I would see the divers doing all these flips, and I was kind of fascinated by it, and I thought it would be cool, but I was so invested in swimming at the time that I was like, no, I'm a swimmer. And then I kind of got to know everyone on the pool deck. Eventually made my way over to Matt. Matt had seen me swimming before, and he was like, you should try diving. And I was like, no, I actually said this. I was like, no, I'm a swimmer. And then a few months later, a new head coach came to our swimming program, and he was like, the swim group that I was in, he said that we could only practice 5 days a week. And I've been training 6 days a week my whole life. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I went through a period where I was only training 5 days a week. And I finally asked my parents, I was like, hey, this Matt, this college coach guy, like told me I should try diving. It looks pretty fun. And eventually they were like, yeah, you can try it. And so on Friday nights, that was the day I chose to take off of swimming. So on Friday nights, I would go in and dive, and I fell in love with it instantly. And before I knew it, I was quitting swimming and full-time diving.
Do you and Matt joke about that nowadays, just looking back and being like, man, we made a good decision?
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny. It's something that we've kind of carried through our entire relationship, even when he recruited me, and like on the recruiting letters on my recruiting trip, all the way throughout college, we always joke about it, in different conversations with different people. And so it's kind of been a really big part of our story as diver and coach. And also, I always love saying that he believed in me before I ever touched a diving board, and his belief has never wavered throughout the entire time that I've been a diver, all the way through college and even as a post grad and into the Olympics. So, yeah.
That is so special because Matt doesn't do that with everyone, right? So he picked a diamond in the swimming section of the pool. So that is pretty incredible. Allison, I know you talked about kind of that transition from swimming to diving, but just reflecting on your diving career, how has diving impacted your life in the most amazing way?
Oh my gosh, that question it's a tough question to answer because it's impacted my life in so many ways. It's something I've been doing since I was 9, 10 years old. I've grown up with it, and I've gone through a lot of highs and lows with it. And I think it's taught me how to build relationships, how to understand people, how to just understand how to work well in not only like my sport, but in my career and in school and with professors and all these things, because it's a super complex sport. It's super high pressure. You fail all the time. You always have to get back up. You're always learning and growing. And I think that those are really powerful lessons that you can take into life in so many different ways. And I really think if I was to say the biggest thing diving has taught me is that failure is not the end of the world, because as a diver, you will embarrass yourself. I've failed dives. I failed dives in like 3 or 4 competitions probably. And yeah, it's embarrassing, but it teaches you how to get back up. And I think that is probably one of the most valuable lessons you can take in a life, because a lot of people are so scared of failure. But as a diver, you can't be.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Allison. And because you mentioned it, I am going to bring up, I did witness that. I did witness that at the Big 12 Conference
Yep.
Championships. But
Yeah.
girl, you turned it around, right?
Yes.
Maybe you failed to dive in prelims, but you turned it around. So it's pretty incredible how you're able to bounce back after that.
Hmm.
Take us through one of those lows. A lot of times, some of the most successful people in life have hit rock bottom, but it only shoots them to the top. So take us through one of those lows that you can reflect on right now as you are just a few weeks away from going to the Olympics.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Deciding which low to reflect on is hard. I would say, let me think. I think one of the biggest lows I actually ever had in the sport was I was young. I was about 13 years old and I was doing platform at the time and I was, trying to learn harder dives off platform and it was scary. And I ended up getting a concussion. And then 2 weeks later, and I didn't realize I would gotten a concussion. Then 2 weeks later, I smacked again really hard on the water, got another concussion. And I ended up passing out in the locker room. And my teammates found me. We didn't really know what was going on. And I kept diving for a little bit. And then, I talked to my parents and I had finals coming up and I went to take my finals. And like literally the day before my finals that were on Monday, I passed out in my parents' bedroom. They couldn't wake me up. They took me to the ER and I was out, I think they said for like 45 minutes or something. They like couldn't wake me up. Finally in the ER, I woke up, they gave me an IV. I had like a little bit of memory loss stuff. It all came back eventually, or like pretty quickly, but it was really scary for me. It was really scary for my family. And I think it opened our eyes to just kind of how dangerous diving can be and how dangerous concussions can be. And I went through a period of, I think it was like a 3-month long recovery process where I didn't dive at all. And it was hard because, I was very invested in my sport and I couldn't dive, but I learned other ways to train and I really worked through it with my family a lot. And I think it was just really tough because it opens your eyes to the reality of the sport and the reality of the highs and lows of the sport. But one thing that I was really proud of myself for was I kept pushing myself. I actually went back to swimming and I started swimming for those 3 months because I could do that. And I kept my body in shape in creative ways. And then when I got back in the water, I started training again. And I think within 3 months, I went to nationals and I ended up winning that national championship that year for junior nationals. And it was kind of a really cool experience that paid off in the long run because when COVID hit, I had 6 months off and I had to do the same thing. I had to get creative. And then here I am after COVID, I got back in the water and I made the Olympic team. So it's kind of cool how that super low actually transferred really well into what I had to deal with COVID.
I'm glad you brought up COVID because I want to break that down, kind of zoom in on it. How were you able to handle this past year? Just the uncertainty, the craziness. I know Austin had the ice storm. How did you do all this and then end up making the Olympic team on the back end?
I think for me, a lot of it was just trusting the process. And when you have because I had a full 6 months off. Some divers were able to get back in the water. I was not able to get back in the water. And a lot of it is just trusting your body. I had to get back in and dive and trust that I knew I could do these things. And it was amazing. I think your body is an incredible thing. People don't realize the power of muscle memory. And this COVID situation really helped me discover how incredible the human body is, how incredible muscle memory is. Because even though I had to take, a week off for the ice storm, I had to take 6 months off for COVID. I was able to come back every time. And as long as I stayed in shape and stayed healthy, my body knew what it was doing once I got back on the diving boards. And so for me, a really big thing, I think, was trusting in my body's ability to handle these situations. And also, I'm like a religious person, and so my faith played a big part in just like trusting God throughout this whole journey for me.
That's right. Diving is all about muscle memory, just years and years and years of all that training. But coping with the fear aspect doesn't come easy, right? I'm sure there was a little bit of a fear when you got back or just with the inconsistency during COVID. How were you able to cope with that, Allison?
I think a lot of it was really just kind of turning off my brain. This is the thing. I talk to my coach about it a lot. Like, if I'm ever having a mental block or something, I'm like, I just need to turn off my brain. Like, my body knows what it's doing, but when I start thinking, when you start thinking, that's when you start questioning things and, not trusting yourself. And so for me, the biggest thing is just practicing turning off my brain and allowing my body to do what it knows how to do. And that is, it's really tough. It's a really tough thing to practice, and it comes with time, and it's something I'm still learning how to do. But I would say, to answer that, the biggest thing is just turning off my brain and allowing my body to take control.
Turning off your brain is hard, right? It's like I want to think, but I shouldn't think because thinking just makes things worse. So just 1, 2, 3, think of 2 things and walk down the board, right?
Yeah.
Alison, I want to go back to the support of your family, your blood family, and your Longhorns family, because I know you guys are really close. You're a really close-knit group. I'm sure it's surreal that you and Jordan Windle are Olympians together, and Matt Scoggins on the roster. What is it like to have this familiarity and part of your family, your Longhorns family, that they're going to be on the pool deck with you?
I absolutely love it. It's incredible having your teammate go through this experience. And it's really funny. It's not just Jordan Windle. I actually had a friend, Stephen McCarter. He competed in track and he just made the Olympic team yesterday. And I was like watching him and I was like messaging him, and we're like, we're going to Tokyo together. And he was one of my friends from literally like freshman year of college. We made it through together. And so it's cool because it's like literally my Longhorn family, not just in swimming and diving, but also in these other sports. And it's truly incredible that we as Longhorns get to experience the Olympics together, and people that you spent 4 years of college with and struggled with and had fun with, and having an Olympic berths together in the same year is just so surreal. And I think it'll make the Olympics that much more special to have your best friends there with you.
That is incredible. That doesn't happen every day, right? I mean, having just other, student athletes from Texas and other sports also going to Tokyo. Take me through like those text messages. Like, what did you guys say to each other? What were you and Jordan Windle's reactions to each other? Like, tell us how this all the interactions came about.
It was just a lot of hugging. There was some crying involved. I didn't really actually cry that much, but like a lot of my teammates did, and it was kind of funny. After my event, on the news or on like NBC, you probably saw there was like a clip where all my teammates like came and hugged me, and a lot of them were crying. So a lot of it is just a lot of like joy and energy and kind of celebrating together and just pumping each other up. And I don't know, it's kind of a really cool feeling because this is something that you only experience with these certain few people. And so it's just a lot of really positive energy in one space. And I don't know, I think it's just confidence boosting. Like everything that, Jordan and I say to each other is just confidence. Like, you're looking great job. Like shouting out specific things, like Jordan's 109 in his final, or his 407 in his final, like shouting out stuff like that and just really pumping each other up. And yeah, so it's just a lot of positivity.
An excitement overload, right?
Yes.
Alison, I just can't believe the games are just weeks away here. Take us through your mental and physical preparation leading up to the games, individually and with your partner.
Yeah, so for physical preparation, a lot of it is I actually got back in the weight room pretty hard last week, and it was a hard week for me because I was a little sore, but I knew I needed to do that so that these next few weeks I could really just let my body recover and feel strong and know that I'm ready. And so physically, it's just making sure I'm training, that I'm strong. And then in terms of synchro training, I'm actually in Nevada right now. That's why I'm in a hotel room, because I'm here training with Krista for a few days. And I'm really excited about that because we're just going to work on our timing, make sure we're in sync mentally and physically. And I think that's the biggest thing in terms of the mental aspect. Relationships are really important. A big reason why I think Krista and I did so well at Olympic trials is because we actually had a trip here. I came out to Reno a few weeks before Olympic trials. We had an amazing trip. We trained well together, but we had fun together. We went to Lake Tahoe. We tried different restaurants and we built our relationship. And going into Olympic trials, our relationship was so strong. We trust each other so much that it really showed in our competition and in our chemistry. A lot of people commented on our chemistry as well at Olympic trials. And so being here in terms of the mental game is also extremely important because her and I have the opportunity to go do things together, like explore Reno together, go to Lake Tahoe, do fun things like that. And that I think is almost as important or more important than the actual physical act of training together and doing synchro together.
Step away from the pool and bond together.
Yes.
Alison, diving, as you know, it is an individual sport, but when you're on a synchro team, you got to work together, work really closely. I'm glad you touched on those aspects of your and Krista's relationship. What makes you guys good for each other? What makes you a good pair when it comes to diving? The fundamentals, the technique, and just the power.
Yeah, I would say we both have really unique diving, and we're both really strong, and we're both able to do pretty tough dives. And we've also been training together for a long time, and so I think the combination of our strength and our just ability to understand the way each other dives and like get in sync with that, I think there's just a combination of a lot of those factors that make us good. And then just being able to communicate is the biggest thing. It's been a really tough journey, actually. We've struggled with communication because as a synchro pair, it's hard and you have to like really be able to say how you're feeling. And that's one of the really big growth points with Krista and I is actually over the years, our communication has gotten a lot better. And that in turn has also helped our synchro get a lot better. And so I think that the biggest reason why we are able to sync up and do so well together is because we've learned how to communicate really well, even communicate the hard things. So
Alison, take us through how you both were paired together.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. We went to a synchro camp. Well, we had kind of like talked before this, but the big moment where we were like officially paired together was we went to this synchro camp in, I think it was at Purdue, and USA Diving had like the best divers in the country kind of come together, and Chris and I were there. And so we paired up with different people each day, and Chris and I were paired up. And at the end of the camp, they had judges come in, and the judges watched us practice. And the goal of the judges was to decide, who was the best pair. And at the end of the camp, they listed out, who the best pairing was. And Chris and I were at the top. We scored the highest based off of what the judges saw. And so because of that, we were paired up. And basically from there on out, we competed together. I had a few other synchro partners here and there at different times, but Chris and I have mainly been together since then, and we're still together today. So
I love that you mentioned how much you guys have grown through communication. Now that we're weeks away from the games, what is the communication like for you guys? What are some things that you're bouncing off of each other as you look to work as a team in Tokyo and do the best you can?
So physically, we know we're there. Physically, we know we can do it. And a big aspect is mental. And I kind of mentioned this, I touched on this earlier, but Chris and I are actually both Christians. We're both very religious. And this has actually played a really big part in our relationship because we bounce a lot of things off each other mentally, and we ground ourselves in our faith a lot. That's how we remain humble and remain calm in times of pressure. And so her and I actually had a really long conversation last night about faith, and she was actually asking me how I was handling all this stuff about the Olympics. And I was saying how, my faith was playing a part in how I was handling this and the mental stuff. And so I think in terms of the mental side of things going into the Olympics, we're just having a lot of like good faith conversations and making sure we're on the same page. And I think that helped us a lot at Olympic trials and will help us a lot at the Olympics as well.
And Alison, I know even after the games, diving will last forever, right? For you especially. How do you hope to carry this sport with you, be an ambassador? What is next for you?
Yeah. What's next for me? What a loaded question. That's actually something so many people have been asking me, and I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know what's next for me yet, but one thing I will say is I have always been in this sport because I love this sport, and I've been through a lot in this sport, and it's taught me a lot of really tough lessons. And so moving forward, my mission is to give back. I am really passionate about helping young athletes, specifically young girls, face the hurdles that this sport puts in front of them, because it can be very difficult, especially for a young girl. And my passion would be able to work with young athletes and work with them on the mental side of things and help them, tackle these issues that confront them. And I don't know if I want to be a coach per se, but I would really love to be more on the mental side of things and just able to work with athletes and share my wisdom that I've learned with them to help them be the best that they can be.
The sky's the limit for you. You can do whatever you want. Alison, I'm glad you brought up young ladies. If a young girl is watching and she wants to be the next Alison Gibson, what advice do you have for her?
My biggest advice, and people probably get annoyed because I say this all the time, but I can't say it enough. Remember why you are here. Remember why you started what you started. For me, burnout is real, okay? Diving is hard, it's exhausting, it's frustrating, you fail, you do good. There's so many ups and downs. And whenever I had a down, I was like, okay, Alison, why are you here? Why are you putting yourself through this? And it's because I love what I do. I started diving because I was fascinated by it and I loved it from the beginning. And so whenever I got burned out or whenever I had a bad meet, I was like, no, I'm here because I love it. And so I say to any athlete, always remember why you started your sport. Take yourself back to why you love it, because that's the core of everything. Because I didn't start diving per se to become an Olympian. I didn't start diving to be a college athlete or be a national champion. That's just what happened. I started diving because I was fascinated by it and I loved it. And that's what really matters. It's the core issue, the core reason why you started that really brings you back and really helps you remain focused and in love with what you're doing.
And here you are, started as a swimmer, moved over to diving, weeks away from representing our country in the Olympic Games. How much does that mean to you, Alison?
It means a lot. I was a kid who always watched the Olympics. I was like, I watched gymnastics and swimming and like ice skating. I watched all these sports and I loved it. Like I remember during the summer, my mom homeschooled us. And so we would be like doing homework and the Olympics would be on and we would just be watching the Olympics and doing homework. And it was so cool. And I knew like all the famous swimmers. And actually when I started training at UT, I knew that like Brendan Hansen and Aaron Pearsall and Ian Crocker, like those big names, I knew that they were swimming at UT. And so I actually got on the pool deck and I was like, I'm going to meet these people. And I was like an 8-year-old, but I was like so fascinated by them. And I ended up meeting them and they were like my heroes for so long, these Olympic gold medalists. And now I'm one of them. Like I'm one of those people who was a Longhorn and now I'm an Olympian. And it's so cool because these people that I looked up to as this young 8-year-old kid that I wanted to meet, that I want to become friends with, now I'm like in that position. And so it's such an honor for me. And I'm so humbled and I feel so blessed that I have this opportunity to be where I'm at today.
Your name is being sketched on the wall, right?
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff. What is something you love to do outside diving? What is like, where can we find you if you're not at the pool or you're not training or you're not at the dryland facility? Where are you? And who are you with?
I love being adventurous. In Austin, where I'm from, we have like green belts. And so you can find me hiking or at Barton Springs. I actually have a few friends. Shout out to my friends who have a boat. I love going out with them and it's really fun because they have all the stuff. They have wakeboards and they just like, it's a great time going out on the lake. And so just anything active, outside, fun, you'll find me doing it. I also love art. I love drawing and it's just kind of a fun hobby. If I want to be alone and kind of decompress, you'll find me in my apartment drawing a picture. So yeah, just I'm everywhere.
Art's a similar activity to diving, right? Kind of shut the mind off, just relax and let your wrist or your hand do what it needs to do.
Yeah. No, it's kind of crazy. Like I can lose. I was working on a piece. It was, I don't know, the start of the year. And I just started working on it and I was working and just listening to music. And I looked at the clock and it was like 8 hours later. I was like, how did I lose 8 hours? You just get so lost in the moment and lost in what you're doing. And it's a really cool thing.
That is awesome. And Austin is a really cool city.
Yeah,
So much to do there.
so much.
Well, Allison, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. And we are so excited to watch you compete. And, best of luck, have fun, and just take everything in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely excited and it'll be great. I honestly, I think I'm most excited now about sharing it with my friends because it's so cool. I think it's weird being in college and kind of being friends with these people and you all talk about the Olympic dream. You all talk about like, yeah, I could make the Olympics. But the fact that it's now a reality and you like talked about it and now it's a thing and you're doing it together with your friends, it's just, I don't know, it's super special. So I think I'm just so excited about really experiencing it with the people that I love. So
Forever an Olympian.
yeah.
Allison, thank you for joining me, and best of luck in Tokyo.
Thank you. Thank you so much.